Hi guys, and welcome to my review and also a small explanation, I hope, of the latest from KINERA, in this case under their sub-brand called Celeste, and it's called the Gumio. They have launched this IEM under the umbrella of being a planar driver, and to a certain extent it is, but I'll get into that in a few minutes, and I'll hopefully thoroughly explain and clarify some doubts that have been coming up lately over the internet about the Gumio. Anyway, the Gumio is a hybrid, marketed as a planar driver with a BA, and also marketed as the cheapest currently available planar driver in the market, a title held by the CCA PLA 13 until a few weeks ago, costing around $65. The Gumio is $49, so just under the $50 bracket. Anyway, this is the package, very simple package, nothing really, out of the ordinary. The IEMs came over there, as you can see, and then inside it brings a little carrying pouch, not a proper carrying case, a pouch, which okay, it's fine. Some tips. Brings this. I don't know what you're gonna call this, but brings this fox. Well, Gumio means the seven-tailed fox. Brings this, and then obviously the IEM and the cable. I'll just show it to you in a second. Okay, so this is the actual IEM and the cable. I've got the black one, plain black. That's the way I wanted it. It's nice. I mean, nice and simple design. Nothing out of the ordinary. It says Celeste on the actual shell. Fits pretty decently. I had no issues with the fit, although the nozzle is a little bit on the short side. It actually fit okay. I'm using KB Year 07 medium-sized tips, the cyan color ones, and with those tips I was able to get the right fit in my ears, and decent enough isolation. So with regards to its physical attributes, it's in my opinion fine, and I think it will be fine for the majority of people. As for the cable, nice enough cable. I mean, it's actually nicer than a lot of IEMs, costing way more money than it. Light, doesn't tangle easily. Honestly, very nice, and I think it matches the IEM quite nicely. Anyway, before we carry on with this review of the Gumio, I wanted to just quickly give a small little tutorial about transducers, speaker drivers, let's put it that way, and the various types of speaker drivers that you have available for headphones, for earphones, for IEMs, and what have you. So basically, a speaker or transducer, is it's more, let's say, technically called. Its function is to vibrate air molecules, and by converting the electrical energy that we get when we connect it up to an amplifier and so on and so forth, and we get the electrical energy coming, the signal, it converts that electrical energy into a mechanical energy that can then be picked up by our eardrums. So that it basically will vibrate the air, it will displace air, so that our ears can then pick up that vibration that is transmitted through the air molecules. The most common type of speaker, or usually or transducer, let's call it that way, or the majority of transducers, because there are several types. They usually are made up of three components. Okay, we have the magnet, we have the voice coil, and we have the diaphragm. The magnet obviously creates a fixed magnetic field, which will then interact with the voice coil when this voice coil is then fed electrical signal. Okay, and the quality of this magnet ultimately will be a factor that will determine the quality of the driver. So if you have a magnet which has a strong magnetic flux, a strong magnetic field capability, this magnet will more tightly control the, 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 the interaction with the voice coil, and bring about better control of the diaphragm, which is connected to this voice coil, okay? Or rather, the voice coil is attached to the diaphragm. The voice coil, obviously, as I said, they are the connecting chain between the diaphragm, which is the part which actually moves and displaces air, and the electrical signal coming from the amplifier. And the quality of the voice coil, again, also has an important factor in determining the quality of the driver and how good it will be at producing sound and so on and so forth. And it's usually made of oxygen-free copper or some sort of high-quality conductor, okay? That will obviously, okay, again, the impedance of that voice coil then has, its inductance, its capacitance. All of these factors, again, will affect the overall quality of the driver and how good it will be, okay? And then finally, obviously, the diaphragm. And the diaphragm can be made of the most simple of materials. In home speakers, for many years it was made out of a paper type of material, and many hardcore audiophiles will still defend that material as being the most natural. Some, kind of the same kind of discussion that happens with valve amplifiers and the sound that valves are able to produce because of their ability to in a very nice way handle the harmonic distortions that are created, okay? And going back to the diaphragm, yes, the diaphragm, its material will then also be important in earphones. We've seen an onset over the last couple of years of more unique materials, but basically the most common one is PET, which is basically a plastic derived material. But you see then that PET base being covered by or being having a film of titanium or beryllium or graphene or carbon nanotubes or diamond-like carbon. So this onset of more noble materials, let's put it that way, has of course made the drivers more capable, more evolved. All right. The driver size obviously is, there's as the saying goes, there's no replacement for displacement, and of course a bigger driver will generate louder sounds. Having said that, it doesn't mean that the larger driver will necessarily be the better driver. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So yes, a larger driver will generate louder sounds because it doesn't have to physically move as much. Okay, and that's an advantage. So if you are able to keep the driver moving less, what this enables us is to have a tighter control. And I'm just going to show you here a quick picture of the breakdown of a dynamic driver used in the earphone. And as I was mentioning, so you have the magnet structure, okay, the pole piece, magnet structure. You have the voice coil, which is then connected externally to the wires that are connected up to the earphone. And then that voice coil is attached to the actual diaphragm, and that diaphragm size and the material used will affect then how much displacement of air it can do and how well it will interact. Okay. Usually larger drivers also have a better ability to produce better low frequency response. And the smaller driver will be more efficient at higher frequency response, and finding that equilibrium between the two is what makes a good full range driver. Dynamic drivers used in the majority of our IEMs and so on and so forth, they are attempting to do that, to completely reproduce the full frequency spectrum. And in home hi-fi, that was the norm many years ago as well. Not so common nowadays, but you still see one or two die-hard companies continuing with that philosophy. Audio Nirvana is one of them. Um, Tannoy, well, Tannoy not so much, but Audio Nirvana is probably the best example of a full range driver. But going back here to the earphones, which is what we want to know. So um, ultimately, um, you know, attempts to create better reproduction of sound have led to the onset of multi-driver earphones, and with novel technologies coming along. And there are basically six basic main types of drivers. The dynamic driver, as you see here, okay, simple, the oldest of them all. The voice coil basically sits inside of the magnet system, and it interacts with the static magnetic system created by the magnet, and then oscillates the diaphragm. It's hindered by non-linear movement of that diaphragm, which then causes distortion, and especially the high volumes, that distortion can become quite prominent, because you have the center of the diaphragm moving slightly faster than the outside of the diaphragm, and all of that non-linearity does cause some distortions. I don't want to get too technical, but I think you're getting the basic idea. We then in that pursuit of having better drivers, better ability to produce better sound, we created balanced armature drivers, which were initially used and are still mainly used in hearing aids, because of their diminutive size, and the fact that they are able to do what they have to do in terms of reproducing a specific frequency range very well. Basically, again, we also still have a static magnet inside. We then have a part of the balanced armature, which is actually called the balanced armature, or the armature if you want, which is then electrified by a voice coil and interacts with that static magnet, and then that part is then also connected to a diaphragm. But while the diaphragm in the dynamic driver actually displaces air, here we just have the creation of vibration in a different manner, and that vibration then exits the balanced armature to that little hole that you many times see on the actual armatures themselves. They are, they have advantages, obviously, being compact, good treble response, but the fact that they are not really displacing air in large quantities does hinder their bass response. And with a few exceptions of some very high quality BA drivers, the majority of BA drivers struggle to reproduce any decent bass below 100 hertz. It's just the more focused ones to that effect that are actually able to do that. So you don't really find a full range BA that is capable of doing things as well as, let's say, a full range DD. Okay, and then that finally brings us to planar magnetic drivers. Planar magnetic drivers are also known as isodynamic, also known as magnaplanar, and they have been all the rage over the last couple of months, over the last year or so, since Timeless was released by 7 Hertz. They revolutionized the market as it is with regards to planar drivers in small applications, because obviously they do exist in larger applications, but until Timeless came along, the planar driver market was in small applications, IEMs, was not really very good. It was and how do planar magnetic drivers work? Well, they basically have let's say magnets as well on either side or on one side, but usually the better ones have on both sides, okay, with a center located diaphragm which is flat and has embedded into it the electrical, let's call it voice coil, That electrical voice coil is what then is connected externally and interacts when it energized with those magnets which are on either side of that diaphragm, and that will basically, it's that control that exists, which is in very tight tolerances, that makes not only the movement of the whole diaphragm become way more linear, so it's not hindered by the same problem as normal dynamic drivers, and this brings with it obviously much more accuracy in the sound, much more control in the sound. The electric, planar magnetic drivers can be very detailed, and the ability to reproduce bass basically is then dictated by the overall size of the diaphragm. And in the applications that we've been seeing lately, we're seeing drivers in around the 14 to 15 millimeter size, which are more than capable of reproducing ample bass with ample quality. That basically is a planar driver. So planar driver, let's not forget, two magnetic systems sandwiched with in between those two magnetic systems is a diaphragm, which is it has an electrical voice coil, let's put it that way, embedded into it, which is energized, and that when energized, that electromagnetic field that it creates interacts with the two magnets on either side, vibrating and then creating air displacement and sound, which is slightly different to the dynamic driver, which has a voice coil which attaches to one end of the diaphragm. That voice coil is located or functions in the center of the magnet system that we have. Okay, and I think that in a very concise manner explains the difference of these two technologies. Now, what is the Celeste, the Gumio's technology being used? Well, it's an in-between of the two. And it's an in-between of the two, and I'll show you now here why. This is an actual planar magnetic diaphragm with that said voice coil that I said embedded into it, okay? And as you can see, the voice coil or the wire is across the whole surface basically of the diaphragm. The Gumio employs a voice coil which is wound, okay, and flat, yes, and just located at one point of that diaphragm. So it's not a 100% the same application as it's fully wound and located just in one place, okay, while here the voice coil is all spread out across the whole diaphragm. That's a very important difference. The Gumio, however, does, here we have another picture which better illustrates what I'm saying. Okay, flat diaphragm of a real conventional planar driver, the diaphragm with the voice coil located on it of the Gumio. So you can definitely see there's a big difference between the two. The Gumio does, however, still have the other factor or the other characteristic that planar magnetic drivers do have. Sorry, apologies. Do have, which is, I'm just trying to find here the picture to show you. There we go. Okay. Well, this is not really the best one, but I'm hopefully okay. It does have magnets on either side. Okay, so it's that there and that there on either side of the center located diaphragm. So it does have magnets which will again help control the movement of that diaphragm and help it, of course, to reproduce sound. So in effect, it's half a dynamic driver, half a planar driver. So some of the talk that's been going around is that maybe KINERA wasn't 100% honest in the way that they put forward the SPD driver of the Celeste, of the Gumio. They should have maybe explained that this is a novel technology, and it is a novel technology developed by a Chinese manufacturer. It kind of falls very much within the BA, the balanced armature kind of technology to a certain extent as well. So perhaps yes, KINERA could have been a little bit more transparent or open or explained better that this is a novel technology, and I think that would have maybe eliminated the doubts and some of the questions that people are now putting up, and you know, and this whole commotion that's being created. The Gumio, you know, to make it perfectly clear, is not a true planar driver in the sense of what a planar driver usually is. No, it's not, but it's not a dynamic driver either. It's an in-between, it's a hybrid of the two technologies. And having said all of this and having tried to explain all of this, it's a good implementation. It's a good technology, and one that I think we should embrace for an attempt by a company to make something different. And I've said it many times, if you're going to do something different, make sure that it's good. And to that extent, yes, the Gumio is good. For the $50 that it costs, it offers a very, very satisfying sound. A sound that initially, when I started hearing it, I was surprised. There were certain things that didn't sound 100% correct to me, as I was expecting a planar drive in its full sense. And one of the things that immediately I started noticing was that it was easier to drive than a planar driver. It was easy to drive like most dynamic drivers are. And the moment I picked up on that, and then I picked up on the fact that it also didn't have the full extension and the full ability to create air like a true planar driver has, I started wondering, is this really a planar driver, or is this maybe something else different? And then that led me to do some research, and I actually found out that it is what I just told you that it is. It's a novel technology. It's something new, something that I think that KINERA would have done best to actually just come out and say that it was something new, instead of wanting to put it under the umbrella of being a planar driver. But having said again all of this, it is very well done. It's got really nice bass, very nicely. The bass is very nicely controlled. It's got a bass which is very reminiscent of the bass for example, the latest offerings from KZ, the ZS10 Pro X. The bass that in terms of the quality, not the quantity. The quality of the bass of the Gumio is very similar to that. It's very similar to the bass as well of the ST5. So it's got this very much DD type of tonality and timbre, which is very nice. Honestly, I really enjoyed it. It's got good control, good speed. It's quite resolving. The mids are again pretty good in the early stages. So in the early part of the transition from mid bass to mids, that part is nice. Although, and I'm guessing that's the reason why they then implemented the BA. It does seem to then lose a little bit as it gets higher up into the higher mids, and beginning to want to transition to the presence area, to the lower treble area. But nothing which is honestly offensive. I'm perhaps nitpicking by saying this, because the reality is I listened to it and I did not find it the least bit fatiguing. I didn't find any relevant sense of sibilance or anything of the sort. The BA driver that they're using here, it's been very coherently married to the SPD driver, to the point where you actually think it's just one full driver. You don't really pick up on any distinction between the two, which sometimes you obviously can do on many other hybrid applications. The treble's got plenty extension in my opinion, although the overall sound signature of this is, I'm not going to say it's a V, because I would say it's a neutralish warm kind of signature. Okay. So how can I better place in terms of sound, the Gumio, I thought it would make sense to compare it to a few other IEMs around the same kind of price. Obviously, some cheaper, some more expensive. So I brought out the, just let me just bring them here a little bit closer so we can actually have them up close and better explain everything. All right. In terms of single DD applications, for me it made sense to excuse me, bring out the 7Hz Zero, the Shimming Li by Tangzhou, and the Richo SG01. Why these three? Well, very simple. The Richo SG01 because under $50 roughly, I think it's one of the more engaging single dynamic drivers that you can get. I could have put the Melee here, obviously, but overall, I find the fact that, well, first of all, the Melee is no longer available, but overall, I find that what this is capable of doing keeps up very well with the Melee in terms of its bass response and mids, and then it has more extension than the Melee, so that's the reason why I actually have it here. All right, fun, engaging, super detailed. It's kind of a I would say this is very much kind of a Blonde 03, but with more energy in the mids. All right, as compared to the Gumio, you do notice there's a certain sense of similarity in the bass quality, not quantity. That's got more quantity. The mids, they are more forward than they are here, so yes, that's a more forward sounding, more alive sounding IEM than the Gumio. But overall, I could say that the Gumio is a slightly more laid back Richo SG01. It's not one wins over the other, they're both very, very good. As compared to the 7Hz, the Zero, well, this is a detail monster, and in terms of pure detail and ability to fetch the micro nuances and everything, it is outright superior to the Gumio. But then the Gumio is better than the Zero in terms of its bass response, bass quantity, everything below, I would say, 1 kilohertz. The Gumio is doing better than the Zero. The Zero just is superior then in the way that it's been tuned in the hyper frequencies, and yes, there it will be better than the Gumio. But again, I'm not really going to say that one is better than the other or anything. They both are excellent IEMs. That one, in terms of single DD, it's probably one of the better ones, especially because it costs $20. And this one because honestly, it's a novel thing, so it's difficult to actually say that it's better or it's worse. It's a new technology. That's, I think, the main thing. KINERA has offered us a new technology, and it's been well done. It's been well executed, really, honestly. With regards to the Tangzhou, why do I have the Tangzhou here? Because the Tangzhou is an in-between of these two. So overall, I actually think the Tangzhou is the one that probably assimilates itself the most, or is most similar to the overall sound of what the Gumio gives us. Only a little bit harsh as compared to the Gumio in that 4, 5, 6K area. It's a little bit, there's a little bit too much energy there at times, and it can be a little bit fatiguing, the Tangzhou, in that aspect. But otherwise, these two have got very, very similar kind of sound signatures. So that puts us the DDs out of the way, and I think you're getting an idea of where the Gumio stands as compared to, well, hybrids. And I've got here a 1+1, a 1+4, and another 1+4. The hybrid is the MS2. I think is one of those hybrids that just hasn't gotten much love. Fair enough, this is around $70, so it's already a little bit more expensive than the Gumio, but it is a fantastic IEM, honestly, fantastic IEM. The bass, everything. I look at the MS2 as kind of the HD Sound Hard Mirror, the original one, in terms of its overall sound, but with a little bit more bass. That's what basically this is, and it's a very, very engaging IEM to listen to. Non-fatiguing, fits well. You know, the treble is super detailed, non-aggressive, really nice IEM. Yes, compared to the Gumio, better details in the Gumio. You feel it's more alive, and overall, yes, it would be a better option or better overall IEM than the Gumio. But I mean, this is, like I said, $70. That's 50, so there is that price difference here. So it's up to you. As for the ZS10 Pro X, similar quality of bass and mids, more quantity there, obviously in the KZ, more energy as well in the upper frequencies over there as compared to the Gumio. But in essence, a kind of a very similar sound, just more relaxed and more laid back in the Gumio, while in the ZS it's more alive, it's more present, and they basically cost the same thing. So you know, you decide which, obviously, you want, something more traditional or something novel. And as compared to the ST5, basically the same thing that I just said with regards to the ZS10, just more energy. That's it. It's just got more energy than the ZS10. Some people like it, some people don't like it. I personally don't have an issue with it, and the choice would be, again, down to you. They cost basically the same thing as well. This is around $60, so you decide. Finally, it of course made sense to compare it to what was and still is, and that's the truth. It still is the cheapest planar available, true planar available, the CCA PLA13. And if I compare it above 1K, graphically they are very similar. They graph very similar. And if I equalize the PLA, so I bring down the bass, because this is a bass monster, honestly. The PLA then shows its true planar nature. It shows that it shines with the characteristics that planar are known for, which is having that big sound, that sense of space, and super detailed, and it's really, it's not fair to compare with the Gumio under those circumstances. In stock format, without me equalizing it, I think that the majority of people will probably gravitate towards the Gumio more, because the fact that it has less bass, everything else then after that comes across better. It's more present. While this, depending on obviously what you're listening to, this will sound very heavy. And it's, I mean, I'm curious to see now the new planars which KZ are going to be launching sometime this week, hopefully. The only real issue with the PLA is the massive amounts of bass that it has. Because I mean, I've compared it to the S12, and again, if I bring down the bass here, it can hold its own against an S12. And those that follow me know that I like the S12. It can hold its own against the Hook X. It really can. Just equalize the bass on this thing down, and you will be very surprised. It is a very capable driver, fully developed by KZ themselves. So just in my opinion, overzealously tuned to have too much bass, and that's really the only thing. Anyway, in conclusion, what do I say about, or what do I want to say about the Celeste? Very nice driver, very nice driver. For the price, honestly, if you want something very novel, very different from what is available, you can't go wrong. In terms of its sound compared to some of the offerings that you have at that price range, it's equal in some aspects, loses on others, beats on others. Overall, I think it holds its ground very well. It brings us something new to the table, something interesting, and I hope that KINERA will give us further developments of this driver, further usages of this driver, because I see it I see it having potential. And I mean, this is a 10mm square, so I can imagine maybe an application using 12mm or maybe even a 14mm, and with a more complex hybrid setup. It could be something to really be quite impressive. So yes, I do recommend it. $50 is money to some people. It might not be to others, but it is money to people. So obviously, I'm not going to say to go outright and buy it, but yes, I do recommend it. If you do have the cash, you won't regret the sound that it offers you, and that's basically it. Yes. Anyway, guys, I'll show you the graphs now in the second part. But as always, if you liked my content, please subscribe, ask any questions, and I will always try and do my very best to get back to you as soon as possible. Alright, thank you, take care. Hi guys, and welcome to the graph section of my review for the KINERA Celeste Gumio. And this is the graph straight away, as you can see. Nice. I mean, everything is relatively smooth. I mean, it stays within 76 to 85, so about 9 dBs more or less, the whole thing. Bass, you could say that it's got somewhat of a sub-bass focus, but it's nice and smooth in the way that it then just drops off and then transitions up into the mids. A little bit early peak of the pin again just below 2K, but then it maintains itself nice and smooth, dip there at around 5, so no real sibilance like I mentioned, the coupler related peak and then some extension past that. But overall, you look at this graph and it doesn't offend you or anything. Like I said, I did some comparisons, for example, compared to the ZS10 Pro X. This is the green line, as you can see. Yes, you can notice straight away that the ZS has got more bass quantity, although then in the whole midsection kind of maintains itself similar-ish to the Celeste, but there is more energy here in the KZ, definitely more energy, and it's very noticeable. The same thing goes for the ST5 again, very similar in the bass, very actually similar in the whole way that it peaks from the initial pin again and everything. Very similar. I mean, you're looking at this and you could perhaps even go as far as saying that it's maybe the same earphone, but you listen to the ST5 and the ST5 is significantly more energetic. But the overall bass sound and mid sound is very similar. So I mean, these three actually, like I mentioned, these three, they have a very kind of a similar-ish sound. The only difference really being the fact that both the TR and the ST5 and the KZ are more energetic. Then in terms of the single DDs that I compared it to, the 7 Hertz, the Zero, as you can see, less bass energy, which was very noticeable, but that less bass is compensated by this very well done mids and highs and the sensation of 3D and everything, which the Celeste doesn't have as well done. I mean, technicalities of the Celeste are okay for the price and okay for the fact that it's a novel driver, but not really. I think the most standout feature in terms of the technical capabilities of the Celeste is its tonality, which is quite correct for the most part, and the timbre, it's also, they're very well done. But the Zero is just better in overall detail, retrieval, soundstage, imaging, everything. The other one which I compared it to was the Tangzhou, and again, very similar, as you can see in the bass curve and everything, just that the Tangzhou is a little bit more energetic, and you notice that it's more energetic. It's got more liveliness, and that does manifest itself then as well with slightly better technicalities. Soundstage is superior, but overall very much neck on neck. I mean, it's not like day and night differences and it's huge or one is better than the other. They just trade blows, And finally, compared to the PLA 13, this does straight away have that raggedness associated usually with planar drivers, which I didn't find it on the Celeste, although it didn't really surprise me, because the TR and the Kirin also doesn't exactly have the more traditional kind of curve, let's put it that way. But as you can see, that this section above 1K of the PLA is exquisite. I mean, it's really good. It's really good. It's just this excessive amount. I mean, we're talking 10 dBs difference. But you bring this down and you will be surprised at how it opens up. I mean, just for the sake of comparison, so that people might not think that I'm just exaggerating about the PLA's abilities. This is the Let's Sure. Let me get it here. Let's Sure. There we go. Let's Sure S12. Okay. That's the S12. Let me now just center them both. And I'm going to take away the Celeste. Now, you know, where is the huge difference between the two? It's not here, that's for sure. Yes, we do know that the S12 has got plenty of treble energy, so yes, you will notice that stock to stock, yes, the S12 is going to be brighter, although graphically it doesn't manifest itself. Now, where the difference lies is if the S12 has got crazy bass, we're talking about almost 8 dBs of more on the PLA, and that's why it just kind of muffles it, brings it all down. But you bring this down, and trust me when I tell you that the PLA does have very good sound, very much the planar characteristics that you would expect. And that's it, guys. Just gonna take this out, show you again the Celeste. Again, it's a non-offensive curve. It's fine, well done, everything maintained within a pretty good margin. And like I said, I don't want to call this a V-ish type, because it doesn't come across that way. I would call it like a neutralish warm. That's more what my ears were telling me. That's it. Any questions, guys, please, as always, ask, and I'll do my best to reply. All right, you take care now. Bye bye.